ShedeurSanders set for pre-draft. Visit with the Raiders. Could Vegas be eyeing a quarterback? The Las Vegas Raiders are showing serious interest in quarterbacks ahead of the NFL draft, and things just got even more intriguing. Reports confirm that Colorado quarterback ShedeurSanders is set to visit with the Raiders, a move that could signal some bold intentions from the front office. This isn't just a casual Zoom call. We're talking in-person visits, private meetings, and serious scouting efforts. The Raiders have already sat down with multiple quarterback prospects at events like the Senior Bowl and other pre-draft showcases. Now, adding Sanders to that list raises some eyebrows. ShedeurSanders is widely viewed as a potential top 10 pick. While some analysts have speculated that he could slide slightly in the draft, it's hard to see him falling outside the top 20. In fact, many believe he could go as high as number 7th or 8th overall. Depending on how the evaluations shake out, Sanders could easily be the second quarterback off the board, and some even consider him QB1 in this class. He's flying into Las Vegas tonight, and his visit to the Raiders facility is scheduled for tomorrow. This could be one of several visits he's making ahead of the draft, but the Raiders' interest here is worth paying attention to. Why? Because Las Vegas might not be locked in on one direction with their number 6 pick. There's a chance they're considering a trade-down scenario depending on how the board falls. Or maybe they're exploring the possibility of drafting a quarterback in the second round, if a high-upside prospect is still available. And the timing of all this lines up with another big move: the Raiders' recent trade for Geno Smith. That deal sends a clear message. They're trying to win now. They're not in a rebuild. They're aiming to compete immediately. Under the leadership of JohnSpytek and PeteCarroll, this team is looking for players who fit that mindset. We've already seen the team make bold decisions, like releasing cornerback Jack Jones and rewarding players who've shown commitment and work ethic. For example, Isaiah Pola-Mao, known for his dedication, received an early extension, even as a restricted free agent. Max Crosby, a cornerstone of the defense, was another guy who earned a major extension due to his relentless effort. Back to the quarterback conversation. Bringing in Geno Smith gives the team a reliable veteran presence, but his contract structure suggests it's essentially a one-year deal. There's a built-in out after the first season, meaning if things don't work out, the team isn't locked into a long-term commitment. That flexibility opens the door for drafting a quarterback, either with their first-round pick or later if someone they like slips. Keep an eye on names like Jalen Milroe, a quarterback with impressive physical traits and a sky-high ceiling. While he's not the most polished passer just yet, his upside has teams intrigued. Some scouts believe he could sneak into the back of the first round. Other potential targets include Quinn Ewers, who many felt would have benefited from another year in college, and Will Howard, a player loaded with tools and potential, but still developing. And then, of course, there's ShedeurSanders, who many believe hasn't even scratched the surface of what he can become. The Raiders are clearly doing their homework, and they're not ruling anything out. Are the Raiders drafting a QB or setting up a trade? The Raiders meeting with ShedeurSanders could signal a genuine interest in drafting a quarterback. But there's another scenario that might be unfolding behind the scenes. Let's start with the draft itself. Las Vegas holds the number 1, 6 overall pick, and while they could use that on a top-tier prospect like Sanders, they might also be setting the stage for something else, a trade-down opportunity. There's buzz around the league that the Raiders could be encouraging QB-needy teams to jump ahead in the draft order. One of the teams to watch? The New Orleans Saints. Rumors are swirling about Saints quarterback Derek Carr potentially missing time in 2025 due to a shoulder injury. While not confirmed, the Saints have a history of pushing their chips in, a strategy that dates back to the end of the Drew Brees era. They went all in with Carr, but that move hasn't quite worked out. Despite having built solid units on defense and at skill positions, the Saints' offensive line regressed, and quarterback play hasn't been consistent. Reports suggest that part of Carr's contract was restructured this offseason to push cap hits into future years, making it easier for New Orleans to move on if needed. If the Saints are considering a reset at quarterback, trading up from their number 9 spot to Las Vegas number 6 could make perfect sense. For the Raiders, that could mean picking up a valuable third-round pick or more, while still remaining in range to draft an elite talent. And it's not just the Saints. Other teams could be eyeing quarterbacks early, even if they aren't openly admitting it. Take the Miami Dolphins, for example. Yes, they have Tua Tagovailoa, but his injury history is a real concern. If Miami misses the playoffs again, head coach Mike McDaniel could be on the hot seat. A rookie quarterback could buy him more time and flexibility with the front office. Other teams to watch include the Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers, and possibly even the Saints themselves, all with some level of uncertainty at quarterback, and all picking after Las Vegas. So, while the Raiders could select a quarterback at number 6, ShedeurSanders being the most talked about name, it's also possible they're using that pick to attract trade offers from teams looking to leapfrog competitors. Of course, there's always the chance the Raiders decide to stay put and make a splash. Let's say they believe Sanders can be the next C.J. Stroud, a player who, in just one season, helped turn the Houston Texans into a playoff team. If Las Vegas sees that kind of potential, it's not hard to imagine them drafting Sanders, letting him sit behind Geno Smith briefly, and eventually handing him the reins, maybe even sooner than later. Geno's contract gives the Raiders flexibility, but if Sanders impresses early, the team might not wait long to give him the starting job. Bottom line, Las Vegas has options. Whether it's staying at number 6, trading down for more draft capital, or grabbing their quarterback of the future, they're clearly planning for both the short and long term. Could Colton Miller be on the trade block? Or is an extension coming soon? While all eyes are on the quarterback situation in Las Vegas, there's another name that's quietly started making headlines. Colton Miller, the Raiders' longtime left tackle. Rumors have begun to circulate that Miller could become a trade candidate, though nothing official has surfaced. Still, it's worth talking about, because if true, it would be one of the most surprising moves of the offseason. Here's the context. Colton Miller is set to hit free agency in 2026, and around the league, he's already being viewed as a player that teams would love to bring in if he ever hits the open market. That kind of chatter should be a wake-up call for the Raiders. If the rest of the NFL sees Miller as a premier talent, why would Vegas even consider letting him walk? Some believe the Raiders could potentially get a late first-round pick if they chose to move on. A team with a strong roster and a glaring hole at left tackle, like the Ravens, for example, might be willing to make that kind of offer. Of course, trading him to a rival like the Chiefs would never happen, but teams with elite quarterbacks and tackle needs would absolutely be interested. That said, trading Miller doesn't really make much sense from a football standpoint. For years, the Raiders have struggled to stabilize the right tackle position. During that same stretch, Miller has been one of the few consistent presences on the offensive line. Getting rid of your most reliable lineman, especially one who's still in his prime, could set the team back in a major way. Quality offensive tackles are incredibly hard to find, and Las Vegas knows that better than anyone. Look around the league. Even top-tier teams are struggling to protect their quarterbacks. The Chiefs shelled out $20 million for a right tackle who hasn't lived up to the contract. The Ravens are still dealing with the injury issues of Ronnie Stanley, who, when healthy, is fantastic, but rarely stays on the field for a full season. Meanwhile, Colton Miller has been mostly durable throughout his career. While he did miss time due to a shoulder issue over the previous 2 seasons, he played through it this past year. After finally opting for surgery, he should be ready to go for 2025. Even when not at 100%, he was still protecting the blind side at a high level. And here's the kicker. His current contract is extremely team-friendly. When he signed his extension a few years ago, it came in at around $18 million per year, which was a solid deal at the time. But with the way the market has exploded since, Miller's deal is now a bargain. For the 2025 season, his cap hit is just $15 million. That ranks him around 18th among all tackles in terms of average salary, a steal for a player who's arguably one of the top 10 left tackles in football. So, is Colton Miller a trade candidate? It's possible, but unlikely. A far more realistic outcome is that the Raiders lock him into another extension, solidifying the most important position on their offensive line and giving them stability as they work to build a playoff-caliber roster. Moving on from Miller would create a hole the team might not be able to fill for years, and in today's NFL, protecting the quarterback is priority number 1. The smarter move? Keep your franchise tackle. Why trading Colton Miller makes no sense, and what the Raiders should do instead. Let's keep it real. When it comes to Colton Miller, the talk of a possible trade just doesn't add up. There's been some speculation floating around that Miller could be on the move, but let's break it down. This guy is one of the most underrated left tackles in the NFL. In fact, you could argue he's sitting right around top 10 status among tackles league-wide. Only a few names might edge him out. Players like Trent Williams, Penei Sewell, or Christian Darrisaw. And sure, someone like Spencer Brown in Buffalo has been impressive, but outside of those top-tier names, Miller absolutely belongs in that conversation. Take Laramie Tunsil, for example. He's been a top name for a while, but struggled through last season, and he's making $25 million a year. Miller? His deal looks like a bargain in comparison. Even tackles like Andrew Thomas may not provide a clear upgrade. Miller has been reliable, consistent, and most importantly, available. Something you can't always say about other high-paid linemen. If Miller were to get a new contract today, he'd probably land somewhere in the $22 million per year range, which is right on par for a top 10 tackle, and he's earned it. So, let's say, hypothetically, the Raiders trade him and pick up a late first-rounder. Then what? Are you banking on finding an instant impact left tackle at pick 28? Because history says that's a gamble. Yes, the formula for drafting offensive tackles usually goes like this. Grab one of the top 2 tackles in any draft class, and you'll probably get a solid starter. But this year's tackle class? Not exactly deep. If you're outside the top 10, you're rolling the dice. Just look at recent drafts. If the Raiders had selected Olu Fashanu last year, they'd have locked down a tackle for a decade. 2 years ago, Darnell Wright was on the board. Now he's one of the best young right tackles in football. And don't forget about passing on Christian Darrisaw for Alex Leatherwood. Yeah, that one still stings. Bottom line, if you get a chance to lock down a reliable left tackle, you keep him, especially when you're trying to build a contender. And if the Raiders start winning, they won't be picking in the top 10 moving forward, which makes replacing a talent like Miller even tougher. So the smarter move? Extend Colton Miller. The cap hit is team-friendly right now, and even with the cap rising, he's worth every dollar. Should the Raiders trade Aidan O'Connell? Now let's shift gears to another name popping up in the rumor mill, Aidan O'Connell. There's been some chatter, notably from Vic Tafur of The Athletic, hinting that the Raiders might be open to trading their young quarterback. Nothing official, but the idea is out there. And it's actually kind of interesting. O'Connell was drafted in the 4th round, and for where he was selected, he's definitely outperformed expectations. He's shown the ability to make every throw, and his arm talent is not in question. But it's fair to wonder how well he fits into the Raiders' evolving offensive identity. Aidan feels like the kind of quarterback who would thrive in the right system. Think Jared Goff, not a flashy athlete, but accurate, smart, and dependable when placed with elite play callers. Goff had the benefit of working with Sean McVay and Ben Johnson, 2 of the best offensive minds in the league. Put O'Connell in a similar environment, he might thrive. And speaking of McVay, the Rams could be in the market for a developmental quarterback behind Matthew Stafford. That could be a perfect fit. Now, would the Raiders get a 4th-round pick back? Probably not. But if a team offered a 5th-rounder, it might be worth it. They'd essentially recoup value on a player they drafted just a year ago, while freeing up space for a potential rookie QB from this year's class. O'Connell is a solid player with upside, but if the Raiders are truly looking to reset at quarterback, moving him now might be the right call, both for the team and for O'Connell's future. Chip Kelly's future role with the Raiders, and what it means for the quarterback room. Looking ahead, one name keeps surfacing in conversations about the Raiders' long-term direction: Chip Kelly. Right now, the offense is operating under a system influenced by PeteCarroll, but Carroll won't be around forever. When he eventually steps away, Chip Kelly is expected to be a leading candidate to take over as head coach, and possibly sooner than people think. For now, he's likely to serve as the offensive coordinator for the next few years, but make no mistake, he'll have major input on who the next franchise quarterback will be. And here's the key: Aidan O'Connell isn't Chip Kelly's guy. Kelly runs a very specific type of offense that demands mobility, quick decision-making, and a high-tempo rhythm, traits that don't perfectly align with O'Connell's more traditional pocket passer style. That's not a knock on Aidan, it just means he might not be the best fit for the future of this offense. So what does that mean for O'Connell? Well, keeping him as a backup for the 2025 season makes sense, especially since Geno Smith is the clear-cut starter. If Geno goes down, O'Connell is a serviceable fill-in. But here's the problem. The system being built is tailored for Geno, not Aidan. And while O'Connell can try to operate within that scheme, it's not an ideal match for his skill set. With 2 years left on a rookie deal, O'Connell still has value. If the Raiders can land a 5th-round pick for him, that could be a smart move. It's a classic case of selling while there's still upside. One potential landing spot? A team like the Rams, who may look to develop someone behind Matthew Stafford before he retires. If O'Connell lands in the right system, with someone like Sean McVay, he could flourish. He's not Stafford, of course, but the framework for success would be there. Meanwhile, it's clear the Raiders are pivoting. Geno Smith is the starter now, and the long-term solution is likely coming via the draft, a player handpicked by Chip Kelly and the front office. Raiders exploring WR options. Is Tedairoa McMillan the guy? Switching gears, the Raiders aren't just focused on quarterback. They're also doing their homework at wide receiver, and one name is quickly rising up draft boards: Tedairoa McMillan out of Arizona. According to Jordan Schultz, one of the most reliable insiders out there, McMillan has been a hot commodity on the pre-draft circuit. He's already visited the Cowboys, Chargers, Patriots, Browns, Seahawks, Panthers, and Saints, and the Raiders are right in the mix. He's got a few more visits lined up too. One executive from a playoff team called McMillan a true star with elite production, and added, "There's no way he falls to us." That says a lot. The Raiders clearly see the value in adding offensive playmakers, and that strategy makes a lot of sense. While bolstering the offensive line is important, adding difference makers at skill positions should be a top priority. Right now, the Raiders lack explosive weapons. Jakobi Meyers is a solid possession receiver, dependable, smart, and reliable. But he's not a true game changer. And that's not to downplay his value. It's just the reality of what this offense is missing. Players like Tedairoa McMillan could change that. He's big, physical, smooth as a route runner, and has the kind of playmaking upside that can help take pressure off whoever's under center, whether it's Geno, a rookie, or someone else. Plus, this is the year to see what the young guys are made of. The Raiders need to evaluate talent across the board. From Malcolm Kuntz and Tyree Wilson on defense to DJ Glaze, Alex Kappa, and Dylan Parham on offense. Let these guys prove themselves, and if they don't, time to move on. But wide receiver? That's one position where the team could really level up right now, and McMillan might just be the perfect fit. Jakobi Meyers is good, but Raiders still need a difference maker at WR. Let me be clear, I'm not selling Jakobi Meyers short. I know he's a very good wide receiver, probably one of the most dependable WR2s in the entire NFL. He creates separation, he's smart, he's consistent, and he wins one-on-one matchups against a lot of corners. Honestly, he's like a better version of Hunter Renfrow. He's quicker, faster, more versatile. But here's the thing, he's not a difference maker. He's not the kind of guy who's going to take a slant route or a bubble screen 60 yards to the house. That's just not his game. And that's fine. A lot of elite WR2s don't do that. Think of guys like Amari Cooper during his Cowboys years, or Jerry Jeudy. These guys thrive as the second option behind a true number one. That's exactly what Jakobi is. But the Raiders need that game-changing WR1. A guy who strikes fear into defenses. A guy who can score from anywhere on the field. Guys like Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors. He might be the best fit if we're talking draft. Even someone like Brock Bowers would help this offense a ton. Now, Bowers isn't necessarily a 60-yard threat either, but he is a dynamic weapon who could shift the entire identity of this offense. He's a mismatch everywhere. That's what we're missing. As for Tedairoa McMillan, I like his game, smooth route runner, strong hands, solid production. But is he that difference maker? I'm not 100% sold. He feels more like another Jakobi Meyers than a Jamar Chase. I'd take him if we trade back, or if the value's there in round 2, but I don't see him as that guy who changes your offense overnight. On the other hand, there are a few guys I think could be that weapon. Travis Hunter, elite talent, explosive in space. Kyle Williams. Yep, I said it. I think he goes top 15. Some folks are going to ask, who the hell is Kyle Williams? Watch the tape. He's a dog. Every year, the draft surprises people. Scouts, fans, even analysts get caught off guard. Look at what happened with Darnell Wright. People said second-round talent, and he ended up being one of the best tackles in the class. Tyler Guyton was supposed to go in the 5th, ended up being a first-rounder. NFL teams evaluate on their own criteria, not what media mocks say. So yeah, McMillan could still be good, but we need a true alpha. That WR1 who can stretch the field and take it to the house on any play. Someone who can line up across from Jakobi and instantly make life easier for Geno or whoever's playing quarterback. And no disrespect, But Trey Tucker isn't that guy. At least not yet. Maybe he develops into a legit deep threat. Maybe he proves me wrong, and I'd love to see that. But as of right now, the Raiders don't have a game breaker on the outside. And in today's NFL, if you don't have one, you're playing catch-up every week. I'll also say this. I'd rather the Raiders grab an elite receiver than an elite running back. Just based on positional value, the way the league is trending, and what this team needs, a wide receiver gives us more return on investment. What's next for the Raiders? We're about 10 to 11 days away from the NFL draft. And let me tell you, the Raiders are going to look a lot different 15 days from now. We're about to add real talent, playmakers, starters, maybe even a franchise quarterback. Let me know what you guys think about everything we covered. Should we trade Aidan O'Connell? Is Tetairoa McMillan worth a first-round pick? Who's your WR1 target for the Raiders? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them. Make sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the mock drafts I've got coming up, plus my full breakdown of the top 12 prospects the Raiders could take at pick 6. Appreciate all the support. I'll catch you in the next one.